The stars were quiet. Too quiet. For 3 centuries, humanity had expanded through the silence. A silence so deep it became sacred. No alien voices, no other civilizations. Just the endless night. And Terran ships carving their paths of silver fire through it. Then one morning, the silence broke. At the edge of Terran space, and in the cold system of Lyra 9, a small listening post caught something impossible. A signal. It came in rhythmic pulses, so deliberate, so mathematical it could not be nature. The transmission carried no words, no coordinates. Just a repeating pattern, like a heartbeat wrapped in static. Commander Arlen Drake stood before the holographic display, arms folded, eyes narrowed. His uniform was plain gray, unadorned except for the small emblem of the Terran Vanguard, the shield of humanity's frontier defenders. Around him, the control deck buzzed with quiet tension. "Run it again," Arlen said. The signal replayed. A soft thump, a pause, another thump, like a hand knocking from the other side of reality. Lieutenant Mara Voss turned in her chair. Her face was pale in the blue light of the screens. "It's not random, sir. The frequency modulates in 3s. Prime sequences. Whoever sent this knows mathematics the way we do." Arlen didn't answer immediately. His gaze lingered on the projection, that pulsing rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for generations, but now that it had come, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something else entirely. "Transmit a reply," Arlen said quietly. "Standard Terran contact protocol." Mara hesitated. "Sir, what if it's not friendly?" He met her eyes. "Then we'll find out before it finds us." The message was sent. A simple response encoded in light. "We are the Terran Union. We greet you in peace," and then silence again. For 6 long hours until the stars screamed. Every sensor on the listening post flared with impossible data. Gravitational spikes, electromagnetic storms. Space itself rippled like water struck by a stone, and out of that ripple a shape emerged, vast, jagged, and alive with crimson light. The bridge went deathly still. "My God," Mara whispered. "It's a ship." It dwarfed their entire outpost, a fortress of black alloy moving like a living thing. Symbols burned across its hull in lines of blue flame, unreadable and ancient. And then the signal came again, this time not a heartbeat. It was a voice. Deep, resonant, alien. Unclaimed space no longer. "Step into Terran domain and meet your end." The crew froze. Arlen's throat went dry. That voice wasn't theirs. It wasn't human, but it was using their language. Somehow it knew who they were. "Get a link to High Command," he ordered. "Now." The comms crackled, but the link was slow. The nearest relay station was half a system away. Outside, the alien vessel began to unfold. Panels separated, revealing clusters of strange orbs glowing with energy. Mara's voice shook. "They're charging something. Sir, they're..." A flash. The viewing deck lit up like sunrise. Then came the shock wave. The outpost shuddered. Consoles burst into sparks. The crew fell as gravity lurched. Arlen pulled himself upright, smoke filling the air, alarms howling like wounded things. Through the viewport, he saw the alien ship turning, its weapons glowing again. "Signal command," Arlen roared. Tell them humanity isn't alone anymore." The transmission was sent seconds before the second blast hit. Lyra 9 went dark, but the message escaped. A dying scream hurled across the void, reaching the Terran fleet, the colonies, the homeworld. And with it came the recording, the sound of that alien voice booming across the stars. "Step into Terran space and meet your end." The phrase echoed across every ship, every city, every heart that heard it. For the first time in 300 years, humanity felt something it had almost forgotten: fear. But beneath that fear, something else began to burn. A spark. Defiance. Because if someone had come to threaten the Terran frontier, they would soon learn. Humanity did not bow. Humanity built empires out of dust. Humanity endured. And if war had come to the stars, then the stars themselves would remember the name of the Terrans. 3 days after the fall of Lyra 9, the stars were no longer quiet. They whispered with fear. They trembled with warning. Across the Terran Union, from the shining cities of Earth to the frozen mines of Titan, the same message played again and again, the final recording from Commander Arlen Drake's station. The alien voice echoed through every command center, every home, every child's dream. Step into Terran space and meet your end. The words spread like wildfire. Some called it a bluff. Others called it a declaration of war. But none could ignore the truth. Something out there had found them, and it was not afraid. High above Earth, in orbit over the Pacific, the Terran Council convened in the Halo Citadel, a ring of silver and glass suspended between day and night. Inside, the council chamber glowed with holographic stars, each marking a colony, a fleet, a home worth fighting for. At the center stood Admiral Rowan Hale, tall, sharp-eyed, a man who had seen too many battles and too few victories. His voice carried the weight of steel. "We lost contact with Lyra 9 at 0300 hours, he said. No survivors. The last sensor readings show an energy signature we can't identify. It wasn't a probe. It wasn't a drone. It was a warship." Murmurs filled the chamber. Minister Callan of Mars leaned forward. "Then we must strike first. Show these creatures that humanity will not be hunted." Rowan met his gaze coolly. "Strike what, Minister? We don't even know where they came from." The message said Terran space, another voice said. "They already know us. They're watching." The chamber grew tense. Fear had a scent, metallic, sharp, like ozone before lightning. And it hung thick in the air. Rowan turned toward the holographic map, tracing a line of light with his gloved finger. From Earth through the colonies, out to the faint red dot marking Lyra 9. "If they wanted to test us, they picked the edge of our reach. They're measuring how fast we bleed." He paused, then faced the council again. "So we'll show them how fast we fight." That night, in the shadow of the orbital docks, ships began to awaken. Engines roared like thunder across the black. The TSS Resolute, Rowan's flagship, gleamed beneath the floodlights. A vessel born for battle. Forged in the old shipyards of Luna, her hull carried the scars of past wars and the promise of new ones. On the flight deck, Commander Lyra Keene stood beside her fighter, checking the mag locks with silent precision. Her hair was tied back, her eyes focused, her movements calm, but her hands trembled slightly when no one was looking. She'd seen the recording too. She'd heard that alien voice, and though she'd trained for war all her life, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was different. This wasn't a skirmish. It was the beginning of something vast. "Keene," a voice called behind her. Rowan approached, his expression as unreadable as the stars. "You've been cleared for reconnaissance. You'll lead the advance wing when we enter Lyra 9 sector." Lyra nodded. "Understood, sir." He hesitated, and a rare crack in his composure. "What happened to Drake's outpost?" "It won't happen again. Not while I'm breathing." She met his eyes and for a heartbeat saw the man beneath the rank, tired, burdened, but burning with conviction. "I believe that." "Admiral," she said softly. As the fleet assembled, the Terran Union trembled between two truths: fear of the unknown and faith in their own defiance. Across the colonies, people gathered on rooftops and spaceports, watching the glowing trails of ships rising from the atmosphere, 1,000 engines cutting through the dark. Children waved. Veterans saluted. Some prayed, and somewhere in the deep, cold dark, something watched them back. On the edge of Lyra 9's ruins, the alien vessel drifted silently, its hull alive with faint blue runes. Within, shapes moved, tall, luminous beings with eyes like mirrors. One of them spoke in a voice that resonated through the metal walls. They answered the signal. Another replied, calm and ancient, as predicted. "Terrans are creatures of defiance. Shall we proceed?" The leader's mirrored gaze turned toward the distant glow of Terran ships. "Yes," it said. "Let them come." The stars flickered. The war had begun. Space was silent, but the silence before battle always felt alive. It pulsed with heartbeats, with memories. With 1,000 quiet fears, no one dared to speak aloud. The Terran fleet glided toward the Lyra 9 system like a storm made of steel. Dozens of ships, cruisers, frigates, and carriers, moved in formation under the Resolute's command. Their lights shimmered against the black, their engines humming with restrained fury. On the bridge of the TSS Resolute, Admiral Rowan Hale stood before the great viewport, hands clasped behind his back. His reflection stared back at him, a man forged by duty, yet still human enough to feel the ache of what was coming. "Fleet approaching Lyra 9 perimeter," reported the navigation officer. No sign of hostiles yet. Rowan's gaze hardened. That's what Commander Drake said. A heavy silence fell across the command deck. Everyone remembered the transmission. Everyone remembered his voice. Lieutenant Mara Voss's final scream still echoed in archived comm logs. From the fighter bay below, Commander Lyra Keene prepared her squadron. Her voice was calm over the comms, but her chest felt tight, her heart an unsteady drum. "Check all systems twice," she ordered. "I don't want anyone going dark out there." "Understood." "Commander," came the chorus of replies. Lyra's fingers brushed the photo tucked inside her console. Her brother, back on Earth, grinning with the reckless confidence of someone who still believed wars were things of the past. She smiled faintly. "Guess I was wrong, little brother," she whispered. "Guess peace never lasts." The Resolute dropped out of warp. Lyra 9 filled the viewport, a frozen blue world now wrapped in drifting ash and debris. The shattered remains of the listening post orbited in silence. Twisted metal, fragments of human dreams, frozen bodies spinning endlessly in the dark. "Dear God," someone whispered. Rowan's jaw tightened. "Scan for survivors." "Negative," came the reply after a moment. "Nothing alive out there." But something was alive and in the dark beyond the planet. Sensors flickered. Then came the sound, faint, rhythmic. Thump. Pause. Thump. The same signal. The same heartbeat. "Contact," shouted the sensor officer. "Bearing 221 Mark 6, multiple signatures." The void came alive. 3 alien ships emerged from the shadows, and vast and angular, glowing with pale blue light. Their hulls shimmered like liquid metal. Rowan's voice cut through the panic. "Battle stations." Klaxons blared. The fleet spread into combat formation. The first salvo lit the darkness, Terran plasma cannons roaring, missiles streaking through space like falling stars. The aliens moved with inhuman grace. Their ships twisted, folded, bent light around them. The first barrage struck, but the energy rippled across shimmering shields and vanished. "Minimal effect," cried the tactical officer. "Return fire," Rowan ordered. The alien reply came like judgment. Beams of sapphire light lanced across the void, slicing through a Terran frigate. In seconds, it was gone. A burst of flame and silence. On the comms, Lyra's voice broke through. "This is Keene." "We're engaging, evasive pattern Delta 9. Her fighter dove between bursts of energy, the stars flashing past her canopy. "They're reading our movement. Keene!" Rowan's voice thundered over the link. "Fall back to formation." Too late. An alien beam tore through her wingman's craft, the explosion lighting her cockpit in red fire. Lyra's heart seized. She felt the shockwave rattle her ship, the scream of tearing metal. "Carter's gone," she shouted, grief slicing through her focus. "They're targeting the lead." Rowan's eyes burned. "All ships defensive perimeter." "Focus fire on the nearest hostile." The fleet tightened its formation. Plasma batteries flared. Missiles found their marks. One of the alien vessels shuddered, its glowing symbols flickering like dying embers. Lyra saw the opening. "Resolute, I have a lock." "Do it," Rowan commanded. Her fighter banked sharply, engines roaring. She lined up the shot, every instinct screaming at her to believe. She fired. The torpedo struck dead center. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, a burst of light like the birth of a new star. The alien ship split apart, fragments scattering into the void. The comms erupted in cheers. For the first time, the aliens bled. Rowan exhaled, slow and steady. "Message to all fleets," he said. "Tell them Lyra 9 stands avenged," but his eyes lingered on the remaining 2 alien vessels. They hadn't moved. They simply drifted, silent, watching. Then the signal came again, stronger, colder. A new voice this time. "Terrans, you have drawn blood. Now we will see if you can endure." And then the stars themselves began to shift. Warp signatures. Dozens. Hundreds, and rippling into existence across the edge of the system. Rowan's stomach turned to ice. They're not alone. Lyra looked at the horizon and with the endless swarm of shapes emerging from the dark. The war had only just begun. The sky over Lyra 9 burned for 7 hours. The Terran fleet fought until their weapons ran hot, until their hulls glowed red with heat and battle scars. But the swarm kept coming. Alien ships slipped out of the void like phantoms. Dozens at first, then hundreds. surrounding the humans in a storm of light and death. Every explosion was a name erased. Every flicker of fire across the stars was a life ending unseen. On the bridge of the TSS Resolute, Admiral Rowan Hale stood amidst chaos. Sparks rained from broken panels. Smoke curled through the air. The deck trembled under the shock of impacts, but his voice never wavered. "Hold the line," he roared. "As long as one ship draws power, we fight." A blast shook the Resolute, sending an officer sprawling. Rowan caught himself against the railing. On the screens before him, red markers multiplied like a spreading plague. Lieutenant Mara Voss gripped the console, her knuckles white. "Admiral, we've lost the Ardent. The Calypso is gone. Shields at 20%. Keep firing," Rowan said. His eyes were dark fire. "We are not ghosts yet." Outside, Commander Lyra Keene weaved through the battlefield, her fighter a streak of light among shadows. Her breath came fast, every heartbeat timed to the rhythm of her ship's thrusters. Keene to all wings, cover the Resolute's starboard flank. They're breaking formation. She pulled her craft into a hard turn, plasma trails curling around her like ribbons of flame. The sky was chaos, burning wreckage, drifting debris, the eerie blue glow of alien vessels. And through it all, the voice. That same alien voice echoing across every frequency, calm as the void itself. "Terrans, your defiance is noted. Your endurance will be measured." Lyra grit her teeth. "Measure this," she spat, launching a barrage of micro-torpedoes into the nearest hostile. The explosion lit her visor in gold, the shockwave rippling through the wreckage. Her comms filled with static, shouts, screams, friends she couldn't save. The stars had never felt so close or so cold. Back on the Resolute, the situation grew dire. Power levels plummeted. Ammunition dwindled. The tactical officer turned, panic flickering in his eyes. "Admiral, they've breached our outer perimeter. If we stay, we're finished." Rowan looked at the tactical map, at the cluster of Terran ships surrounded by a sea of blue. He knew they couldn't win here. Not today, but retreat felt like betrayal. He closed his eyes for one brief, steady breath, then opened them again. His voice, when it came, was calm steel. "Signal all remaining vessels. Prepare for fallback to Delta Line. Leave decoys and mines. Make them fight for every inch they take." "Yes, sir." "And inform Commander Keene to lead rear defense. She's our spear point." Lyra's squadron was reduced to half strength when the order came. Her hands trembled as she acknowledged. "Copy that, Resolute." Falling back, "Lyra," Rowan's voice softened over the channel. "You've done enough. Get your people home." She smiled sadly beneath her helmet. "Home's wherever the fight is, Admiral." And she dove back into the fray. Her fighter danced between wrecks, guiding crippled allies toward the retreat corridor. Explosions rippled around her like a heartbeat. Relentless, beautiful, terrifying. The alien ships pursued, their weapons flaring like stormlight. One by one, the Terran ships slipped into warp, vanishing in streaks of light. The Resolute was the last to go. Rowan waited until every signal was confirmed, until every survivor had escaped. Then, with smoke rising from his command deck and debris drifting past the viewport, he gave the order, "Engage warp." The stars stretched. The burning sky fell away. Silence returned. The fleet reappeared in the shadow of a dying star, the fallback point, known as Delta Line. Only 14 ships remained. Once they had been a fleet of 67 medical teams worked through the wreckage. The wounded filled the corridors. The dead were given to the stars. Rowan stood alone in the observation deck, watching the light of Lyra 9 fade in the distance. His reflection in the glass looked older, heavier. Lyra joined him quietly, her flight suit streaked with soot. "We lost so many," she said softly. He nodded. "We'll lose more before this ends." She looked out at the stars, the same stars she once dreamed of exploring as a child. "Do you think they'll come again?" Rowan's eyes were cold fire. "They will. And when they do," he turned, the light of distant stars burning in his gaze, "they'll learn what it means to step into Terran space. Far away, beyond human reach." The alien fleet drifted among the ruins of Lyra 9. Their leader, a tall being of light and glass, watched the fading human signal. "They survived," one of his subordinates said. "No species has ever survived the first incursion." The leader's mirrored eyes gleamed. "Then perhaps this species is worth knowing." He turned toward the stars where the Terrans had fled. Begin the pursuit. When the Terran fleet returned home, it wasn't to triumph, it was to silence. No parades, no fanfare, just the cold shadow of loss stretching across the stars. As the battered ships entered Earth's orbit, the world below watched. From the shining towers of New Geneva to the quiet farmlands of old Australia, people gathered beneath the sky, eyes turned upward. They had sent their protectors into the dark, and now only a handful had come back. The name Lyra 9 became a whisper. A warning, a wound. In the Halo Citadel, the Terran Council met again, but this time the chamber felt smaller, darker. The holographic map showed more red zones than ever before. Systems evacuated, colonies burned, communication relays dead. Admiral Rowan Hale stood before the council with a straight back and tired eyes. His uniform was torn, scorched in places, but he wore it like armor. Minister Kalin spoke first, his voice tight with anger. You said we could hold them. You said we'd make a stand. Rowan met his glare with quiet strength. We did, and we're still standing. Barely. Kalin slammed his hand on the table. Half the outer colonies are gone. If they reach Mars or the Belt, they won't, Rowan interrupted, his voice like thunder breaking through panic. Because we'll stop them here. A hush fell. He turned toward the holographic star map where a single blue light glowed. Sul, humanity's cradle. They think we're weak because we retreat. They think we'll scatter like dust. But they don't understand us. He stepped closer, his reflection caught in the light. Every world we've lost, every ship that's fallen, those weren't defeats. They were lessons, and we've learned faster than any species in history. His gaze swept across the chamber. Earth is the heart of humanity, and iron and unyielding. We will not let it break. Outside the Citadel, preparations began. Shipyards burned through the night, constructing new warships faster than ever before. Scientists tore apart fragments of alien wreckage, studying their weapons, their shielding, their strange energy cores, and deep beneath the lunar surface, engineers worked on something new, a project whispered only in secure channels. Project Aegis. In the fleet barracks, Commander Lyra Keene sat at a window overlooking the Earth below. The planet glowed soft and blue, a fragile jewel wrapped in light. For a moment, she let herself breathe. A small hollow flickered in her hand, her brother again smiling in an old recording. Don't be late for dinner, he said, laughter echoing through time. Mum hates cold stew, she smiled, eyes damp. Guess I'll be late again, kid. The door opened quietly. Rowan stepped inside. You're supposed to be resting. I don't sleep much anymore, she replied softly. He stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. For a long moment, they both stared at Earth. When I was a boy, Rowan said, my father used to tell me that humanity was born under fire. Volcanoes, storms, hunger. The universe tried to kill us before we could even speak. And yet here we are. Lyra looked up at him. Do you ever think, maybe the universe just keeps testing us? Rowan gave a faint smile. Then let it test. We'll keep passing. They stood in silence, side by side, soldier and commander, scarred and still standing, far across the void. The alien armada gathered near the system known as Vornis Reach. There, the luminous beings prepared their next assault. Their leader, the one called Serac, stood before a vast projection of the Terran systems. The glowing web of human colonies flickered like candlelight. One of his lieutenants spoke. Their numbers are many, but their reach is short. Their power fades quickly. Serac's mirrored eyes reflected the map. Power is not their strength, he murmured. It's their will. Another voice, sharp and questioning. Why do we not end them now? Serac turned. Because we have never faced a species that refuses to kneel. To understand them, we must face them on their ground. He pointed toward the blue dot at the heart of the Terran network. Earth. The chamber fell silent. Even the hum of alien machinery seemed to pause. Prepare the fleets, Serac said. We descend upon their homeworld. Back on Earth, the first tremors of the coming storm rippled through the ranks. Engineers tested new plasma cores. Pilots practiced maneuvers until their hands bled. And in every street, every colony, every corner of humanity's empire, a quiet fire burned. Fear, yes, but something greater than fear. Hope. Lyra stood beneath the rising dawn, her hand resting on the cold metal of her fighter. "If they want Earth," she whispered, "they'll have to go through me." And far above, in orbit, the fleet began to move again, like a heartbeat awakening from pain. The iron heart of Earth had begun to beat. The sky of Earth was a war front. Above the blue and green jewel of humanity, the alien fleet descended like a living shadow, hundreds of vessels shimmering with pale blue energy, stretched across the orbit like a web of light and death. Each ship was massive, alien, and perfectly precise, designed for one purpose: to crush humanity before it could rise again. On the bridge of the TSS Resolute, Admiral Rowan Hale stared at the projection of the approaching fleet. His reflection, framed by the burning light of the holograms, looked older, heavier, tempered by loss and fire. "Status report," he demanded. Lieutenant Mara Voss's fingers flew across the console. "All fleets in position. Planetary shields are at 80%, but their energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've seen. They're cutting through our decoys as if they weren't even there." Rowan exhaled slowly. "Then we meet them on our terms. Target the forward clusters and buy time for the planetary defenses." Down on Earth, humanity braced itself. Citizens of every colony had been evacuated to reinforced bunkers. Spaceports were locked down, and the surface buzzed with engineers, medics, and soldiers preparing for the worst. Across the continents, towers of plasma cannons rose toward the sky like steel trees, their barrels glowing red-hot in anticipation. And at the very heart of it, in Luna's orbit, the Terran fleet assembled for the final stand. Lyra Keen's squadron readied itself in the hangar bays of the Resolute. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from the weight of knowing what had come before and what must come next. "Eyes on the enemy," she said softly to her wingmen. "Today we fight for everyone we've lost, and for everyone still breathing." The first salvo struck. The alien fleet moved with terrifying coordination, beams of sapphire energy slicing through the void. One Terran destroyer disintegrated before the Resolute could respond. Explosions lit the black like lightning storms, and debris fell in silent arcs toward Earth. Lyra's fighter dodged a cascade of energy beams, weaving between explosions. Her comms were alive with frantic shouts. "Keen, cover the left flank. Falcon Squadron down." I repeat, Falcon Squadron down. Her fingers flew over the controls, launching micro-missiles, firing plasma turrets, weaving through impossible odds, and then, through the chaos, came Rowan's voice. "Lyra, the planetary shield is under strain. You're our spear point. Hold the line. Hold it with everything you have." "I will, sir," she shouted. The battle reached Earth's orbit with the force of a hurricane. Alien ships tore through outer defenses, their beams striking the planet's surface and turning oceans to steam in bursts of blinding light. Cities evacuated to shelters trembled under the power of each strike. Yet humanity endured. Plasma cannons erupted from the surface, striking enemy hulls with furious precision. Fighter squadrons danced among the wreckage of alien vessels, harrying them, forcing them into evasive maneuvers. Every victory was small. Every loss was profound. Lyra's fighter dove toward an alien dreadnought, her squadron thinning with every pass. Explosions threw light across her visor. She could see the faces of those she had fought alongside, bravery, fear, and a shared determination shining through. She pushed forward. Fired again, and again. The dreadnought shuddered. Sparks ran along its hull. And then, in a brilliant explosion, it split apart, fragments raining across the void. Lyra exhaled, tears streaking her visor. "For every one of us, you will remember this." From the bridge of the Resolute, Rowan watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Humanity's losses were vast, yet their spirit endured. He thought of Lyra 9, of all the names burned into memory, Commander Drake, the Ardent, the Calypso. He thought of the survivors, of Lyra, of the iron heart of Earth. "They thought they could intimidate us," he murmured. "They thought fear would break us. They were wrong." Yet even as he spoke, he saw the alien fleet reorganizing, their numbers unbroken. The fight was far from over, but humanity had learned something in the crucible of fire. That courage was stronger than numbers, that willpower could bend the universe itself, and that even when the sky burns, the human spirit would not fall. And as the stars lit up with battle, Earth's people watched from below, hearts pounding, hope burning like a defiant flame. This was their home. This was their fight, and they would not surrender. Far beyond, Serac's mirrored eyes reflected the chaos. He had expected quick victory. He had not expected resistance like this. They survive. Against all odds, his lieutenant whispered. Serac's expression remained unreadable. Then let us see how far their spirit stretches. Prepare for the next wave. The stars trembled, and humanity, battered but unbroken, met them with fire. The first light of Earth's sunrise broke over the horizon, streaking gold across oceans that still bore the scars of war. Above, in orbit, the remnants of the Terran fleet formed a fragile shield. Ships glinted in the sunlight, battered, smoking, but unbroken. Humanity had endured, not by luck, not by chance, but by sheer will. On the TSS Resolute, Admiral Rowan Hale stood in the observation deck, eyes fixed on the planet below. His reflection in the viewport looked like the reflection of every Terran who had survived the storm, tired, scarred, yet unbowed. Today, he said, voice steady as steel, we decide not just if we survive, but if we rise again. Commander Lyra Keene tightened her grip on the controls of her fighter, scanning the battlefield. Alien vessels hovered above Earth, reorganizing, their glowing hulls like shards of ice in the void. Keene, all wings report, Rowan's voice crackled over the comm. Falcon Squadron operational, she replied, her tone fierce. Sparrow Squadron ready, sir, and we're all here to make them pay for every world they've touched. Then let's finish this, Rowan said. The final wave came. It was unlike anything humanity had faced. Alien dreadnoughts, more massive than anything in Terran memory, surged forward, flanked by hundreds of agile strike ships. Their weapons flared like suns being born, carving fire across the black. But humanity met them with everything it had. From the surface, orbital cannons roared, fighters danced like lightning, weaving through the alien storm. The Resolute and remaining capital ships struck with precision. Every torpedo, every plasma beam, every strike aimed at exploiting weakness. Lyra dove through the heart of the enemy formation, eyes burning with fury and grief. She remembered every loss, every name, every friend, every world taken. She remembered Lyra 9, and every Terran who had fallen before the fight truly began. For you, she whispered and fired. The battle became a tempest. Explosions flared across space, debris spun in lethal arcs. Alien ships that had seemed invincible began to falter. Human ingenuity turned their technology against them. Adaptive shields, magnetic pulse disruptors, plasma torpedoes. Rowan barked orders, but his voice was calm beneath the storm. He knew fear. He had felt it at Lyra 9 in the shadows of loss. But he also knew something stronger, determination. Humanity would not die here. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, the tide turned. The alien leader, Serac, watched the battle unfold, mirrored eyes reflecting the chaos. They are persistent. Foolish, perhaps, he murmured, but remarkable. His ships faltered under coordinated attacks, his fleet splintering. The Terrans were not simply fighting. They were uniting, adapting, learning faster than he could anticipate. One by one, the dreadnoughts fell, their shattered hulls drifting in silence. Smaller vessels tried to regroup but were caught in converging Terran fire, and for the first time Serac realized something he had not predicted. A species could fight with more than strength, with courage, unity, and an unbreakable will. Lyra watched an alien strike ship collapse beneath her salvo. Exhaustion burned her body, but adrenaline kept her sharp. Her squadron regrouped, battered but alive. "Target the command ship," she shouted. "Let's end this now." Rowan confirmed the strike. All fire converging on Serac's flagship. This is humanity's stand. The Resolute fired its largest plasma torpedoes. Planetary cannons joined in, every weapon synchronized. The flagship shattered in a blaze of brilliant light. The alien fleet wavered, then scattered, retreating into the void, never to challenge Terran space again, at least not today. Silence fell. The fleet drifted among the debris of the war, battered and bleeding, yet alive. Earth hung below like a jewel in the calm after a storm. Survivors cheered, wept, and held one another. Humanity had survived the impossible. Lyra floated in zero gravity, staring at the stars. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it," Rowan joined her quietly. "We did more than survive. We proved ourselves. They came to test us to see if Terran space could be claimed, and they learned the truth." Lyra tilted her head. "And what is that truth?" He smiled faintly, eyes bright with determination and pride. "That humanity does not kneel. that we endure, that we fight when we rise, and no matter the cost. On Earth, the sun rose higher. People emerged from shelters, the air thick with hope and grief alike. Monuments would be built, songs would be sung, stories would be told for generations. The memory of loss was sharp, but the triumph was brighter. In the void above, the Terran fleet regrouped, battered but alive. Their eyes were on the stars, vigilant, fearless. The message had been clear: step into Terran space and meet your end. But now humanity's message echoed back across the stars: step into Terran space and witness what it means to face a species that refuses to fall. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew the true spirit of humanity. The dawn had come,